Welcome to the Position Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Capasso, and we're here to learn together. I'm on a personal research project to understand how elite performers in sports, military, and the creative arts make successful transitions into their personal and professional lives beyond those early pursuits and endeavors. And I have a theory that the environment that someone chose or that chose them, and the position or role that someone played in that environment that they chose or that chose them, can provide the keys to understanding their best path forward. We're just getting started, and I'm excited to share these dynamic stories with you. Let's dive in. I'm really excited to sit down and chat with you. You and I have had a lot of conversations in the kitchen here at Collective, talking about just what you're trying to build here, how you're trying to help athletes, help entrepreneurs, help the community. So I'm super excited. So I want to get to know you a little more. Yeah. And so in the prep of that, I came across and I listened to, read some articles, listened to some interviews that you had done. And one thing really stuck out to me in one of the interviews that you did, where you said, I need to know what an identified win is from this meeting.
Absolutely.
And first I want to ask you, why is that important? Where does that come from?
Yeah.
And maybe we can then go into what the identified win is here.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, first of all, thank you for having me. But I think the identified win part is just the competitor in me. Majority of the things that I've participated in my whole life have had a scoreboard. There has to be some type of scoreboard, right? And I think that helps drive intention. So when I'm saying an identified win, I'm not saying in a meeting that I get over on somebody, that they get over on me. I'm saying, what was my intention from my time spent in that space? Because I'm at the space now to where, like, I weigh everything I'm doing up against spending time with my kids. Like, everything I'm doing, like right now here today in this podcast, I'm not with my kids. So I need to make sure I need to make sure that's worth it for me.
Totally.
So I need to identify what I'm doing and the time that's being spent and what we're aiming to get out of something before I just say, yeah, let's do it. I'm probably not flying by the seat of my pants like I was 10 years ago. So
to maybe double click on that a bit, what would be an example of the rubric or the framework you would put any ask that you get through to try to identify if that aim meets the priorities, right? Fits in your priorities and your values. How do you think about that?
Going into it?
Yeah.
For me, it's not like super complex. It's simple. It's like, why are we agreeing to do this? Because like we always say, most emails could have been phone calls, and most meetings could have been text messages. So like, why are we like literally filling up a calendar? Yeah. With agendas? Like, what are we trying to get accomplished? Yeah. And if we can't identify what that is, then let's table it, because we're probably just gonna and who knows? Like, sometimes some of those sessions can be a think tank session. That's okay. At least I know what we're here doing. Yeah. We're literally here trying to find some inspiration for whatever the thing is. Yeah. But if it's not a think tank session and it turns into one, I'm probably not the happiest camper. Yeah. So like that's just, I want to know what I'm doing with my time. Yeah. I mean, that's the number one resource that we don't know how much we have, and we're spending it every day. So I need to know what I'm doing with my time. Yeah. No, I love that. And so let's come back to some of that. But starting on this conversation, I think we felt probably it was important enough to sit down and talk together because both you and I have spent a lot of time mentoring with friends, living it personally, this transition out of elite level athletics and sport, and trying to find our path as a professional in professional life. Right. And we talked a lot about that. And so maybe and as I thought about that a little deeper, I thought, well, Jeremy has an incredible story around his journey, and with such great intention and such great execution, let's say, and we want to unpack that. But what I hope most for anyone listening is that they don't necessarily attach to that to say, that's what I want, and I need to do exactly what Jeremy did. What I hope is that they get a set of learnings that they can apply to find their own path and their own journey. Right. What's your thought on that? I think that's, honestly, as you were talking, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about like this old Tupac quote where he was like, I might not be the one that changes the world, but I guarantee you I inspire the mind that will. Yeah. Right? And like, that's kind of how I think about my own journey. It's like, I'm not here to say, do it like me, I'm telling you that I found that works for me, and here are the tools I use. Here are the books I've read. Here are the challenges I face. Here's how I overcame. I'm just trying to equip you with information, knowledge. As much knowledge and as much information as you can get, and then the way that you apply it is ultimately going to determine, you know, well, and the way that you overcome obstacles. Let me not forget that piece. Ultimately, that's some of the biggest part of the formula for any type of success. Whether it be business, financial, family, like anything, it's going to be like, all right, what did you learn? What do you know? How are you applying it? And then, you know, what kind of grit do you have? How much can you suffer? Because ultimately, even the best plans don't always turn out exactly how we drew them up. So like the way that people pivot and the way that they continue to move forward is going to be a big indicator as far as like what kind of success they have going forward.
Yeah.
So like if anything, if you taking anything from me, look at somebody who's willing to get off the treadmill last. I got that from Will Smith. He's like, I'm not the most intelligent. I'm not the most athletic. Don't always have the brightest ideas. Not the most creative. Not the most handsome or the most beautiful. But I'll never get off the treadmill first. And I think like as a mentality of like you set a goal, you do that thing, and you don't settle, but if something comes to its completed state and you say, I'm good right here, then be good right there and you move on. But we're not moving on because we settled. We're moving on because it's time to move on to the next thing, right? So like that's how I look at every individual thing. And I think that's where you're talking about the execution part, is that I'm willing to go wherever it takes me to achieve the thing, as long as it's not compromising my morality.
Yeah.
But you know, like all things considered, I'm willing to, if we're saying that we got to stay up later, work harder, do things we didn't sign up for, learn a different language, go back to school, work hard, like I don't care. Those are all details. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and I hope that like people can take that. I try to live that to where they can take that as an example and apply that to however it applies to them.
So where does that come from for you, the ability to do that?
My mother. I got a chance early on to witness a resilient spirit. I mean, she didn't sign up to be a single parent. She only like biologically gave birth to 2 children, and she ended up raising 5. And she's a single parent. How's that work, right? She took on the responsibilities of others when they decided to throw in the towel, right? I got a chance to witness what true grit looked like every single day for a very long time. So exposure, early exposure to something, and then applying it later on as an adult to my own situations and refining it to where it fit me more naturally and organically. It don't look the same, but that's where it came from. Like, you know, like in sports, they'll have like those coaching trees. It's like, I'm from this coaching tree. Like, I've changed up some of the offense. You know, I'm used some different terminology. Yeah. I go 3-by-1 to the left versus the right. You know, my hot reads are slightly different. But ultimately, the ideology came from here. So that's, for me, that's what it was early exposure.
Yeah. And when you chose to go to Texas, why did you choose Texas? And I'm curious that like how you chose Texas over any other opportunity you had.
Yeah, I grew up a University of Miami fan, Miami, Florida, Miami Hurricanes. And when I came out, I had just south of 40 Division I offers, which was not impressive because I had an older brother that had 70 plus. Right? Come on, how come after this guy? Like I grew up a big Miami fan. I wanted to get out of Texas. I wanted to be my own man, be out on my own. And unfortunately, they had some criminal activity that went super public around the time that I was getting recruited there. And, you know, me being young and naive and ignorant, I didn't care. I was like, well, that's not my business. I'm just going. And this same mother that I'm talking about, she like begged me not to make this decision, right? Because it's different. As a parent, you can kind of manipulate your children in a positive way until they have the understanding to make good decisions on their own. But it's like if she was paying for my school, I'm not paying for you to go there. But it's tough when like I had my first full ride offer at 14. By the time I was 15, I had 9. So it's tough when like she knows and I know my time here is coming to an end. and you don't make the decision for me from this point on, right? I realized that at 16, 17, and she did too. So all she can do at that point is try to guide me in the right directions, knowing that ultimately the decision is going to be mine. And then thankfully, even though I didn't listen, I was a knucklehead when I was younger, and even though I didn't pause, the craziest thing is that like the same things I would get in trouble for younger, I get praised for now. And I'm like, I didn't change, the world did. but
what would be an example of that?
Defiant, which now they call me a thought leader. Defiant was one of them. One that didn't change in word, but it changed in the way it was used was disruptor. He disrupts the class. Now it's like, oh, he disrupts a space. And
He's an innovator.
Yeah, now he's an innovator. But all that said, the one thing I'm glad I did listen to at a 17 was her genuinely saying she doesn't feel like that was the right decision for me. And you know, since I was 5 years old, I wanted to go to this school, and I had the opportunity to do so. And she was so adamant about me not doing it. You know, as a kid, you're like, if she doesn't want me to do it, then I'm gonna do it. But I don't know. I felt like that wasn't a genuinely, like, inside. It was a voice. It was like, no, she's right. And so I opened my recruiting back up, and I was looking at USC, Texas A&M, and Texas, pretty tough. And I was looking at Notre Dame too. True story, man, it's embarrassing. I thought Notre Dame was in California. Oh yeah, man. I can't do the cold. And I'm a Texas boy. I'm from Houston. I'm a Texas boy through and through. I can do hot all day, humid, well, whatever. Cold, you got me. So I found out Notre Dame was not in California. That crossed it off my list. USC, I really wasn't feeling it at the time, and then it came down to Texas and Texas A&M, and I took a visit to Texas A&M. And my entire Texas A&M visit, they kept talking to me about Texas. The entire visit. And this is a true story. They had a segment of my visit where they asked all the parents and the coaches to leave the room. And me and like 4 or 5 other players that were being recruited, and then the current players, we got a chance to just talk. And we're asking all the questions that an 18-year-old would ask, right? What are the girls like? What's school like? How hard is the work? How hard is practice? What's considered a great season around here? And I will never in my life forget, I won't say the kid's name. I remember exactly who it was. He said, man, to be honest with you, as long as you beat Texas, you pretty much had a good year around here. And they started laughing. And I knew right then and there I wasn't coming to that school. If my entire goal is just based on beating somebody else, I want to be so great that people are worried about beating me. I never in life aimed to beat or be somebody else. So it's funny, going into that room, I was high on A&M. I loved it, the culture. I mean, because I'll be honest, College Station, they get around that team. I loved it. I loved all of it. When we came out of that room, I didn't even want to finish the visit. I told my mom, like, I'm ready to go. She was like, are you all right? I said, I'm not. I'm ready to go. Say, what are you? I'm saying, if we leave now, we can make it home. I'm ready to go. I don't need to stay here anymore. There's nothing for me here. I went into a meeting, and we had an agenda, and I figured out it's not for me. Like, you know, without even being refined enough to know my process, I knew my process.
Yeah.
And so I did a deep dive into Texas, and I think I always knew it was the right fit. But again, that defiant spirit. I had an older brother that was playing there, and I wanted to kind of carve out my own path. And when I stopped making it about him and just realized that this was the best decision for me, I can tell you it's now been what? Shit, Tony.
Yeah.
13 years since and I can look back, you know, and say that it was still the best decision. Graduating from UT in 2011, 2012 was the best decision. Some of the best years were playing football there. Met lifelong friends, like, you know what I mean, got exposed to life in a different way. Sparked my interest to what became my career in performance training. I got so much to thank the university for. And it still feels good to work with the university in a capacity to this day. Yeah. So that was like how my whole recruiting process played out. And then, I mean, I couldn't wait to get there. I graduated high school early. I graduated high school in December, and then enrolled in the university that spring. So, it was good.
So that's an amazing story, and there's so much to learn from that in terms of like we talked earlier. What's the framework or the rubric? It can be quite short.
Yeah.
The job is to compete to be the best, not to be chasing the best.
Exactly.
But to be chased, and that might be the only criteria.
Exactly.
So that's pretty impressive. Well, I'm curious because clearly you're like massively talented, obviously in so many different ways, obviously physically, mentally, emotionally. When you were growing up and going through your high school days, what else interested you at that time? What else? Was it all football all the time? Or what else did you spend your time thinking about or working on?
I wish it would have been all football my mother wishes it would have been all football all the time. Tony, I got in some trouble, man. I got in trouble. But I got in trouble for I'll kind of say like innocent fun. School came pretty easy to me. And, in most inner city areas, when you got a kid that school comes easy to him, he gets bored.
Yeah.
So I got in like bored, childish boy fun.
Yeah.
More than anything else. And then also, if things didn't make sense to me, I asked a lot of questions, which I still do. People are okay with me asking the questions now. They weren't okay with me asking them when I'm 14.
Yeah.
But if something doesn't make sense, and I teach my children this today. I don't care who says it. We respect individuals and we respect the chairs they're in. No one is above us. I want to be clear. I'm not above you as a child. You have to respect me as your parent. You have to respect the fact that I'm seated at the head of this table. I make the decisions. You may not always agree with them. But that's respecting the chair. You respect me because of how you see me treat others, the way that I'm honest and fair in my interactions with you. Don't always say what you like. I'm always honest and fair. That's a respectable trait. So we respect the chair. We respect the individual based on how they move. So for me as a kid, it's tough because if there was no respect there, I wasn't interested in gaining theirs. I don't respect you. I really don't have an interest in you respecting me. That can be problematic in the school system, especially when I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
They don't like when you ask questions, Tony, especially if you get in the habit of asking good ones.
Yeah.
So
you might be exposing,
that's really what it was.
Yeah.
Like I said, school came. I was on A honor roll, AB honor roll my entire life. So I used to get upset sometimes at some of my best friends that I grew up with. I didn't feel like they were being prepared. I kid you not. You did some research before this. Ask anybody that grew up with me. I used to get in trouble because I would feel like my friends weren't being prepared. I would tell them all the time, don't worry about me. I'm going to be good. I'm 15. Like, trust me. I mean, I'm living in Section 8 government housing. Like, no, this is just my current circumstance. I'm going to be okay. Like, the confidence was always, it's like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of it. No, I don't. No, I'm going to be good. But I need you to do a better job for them. Like so it wasn't always football all the time because I was like some fake like Malcolm X leader of the new revolution. I don't know who I thought I was, but I wasn't always. There was a good amount of time that I was at odds with authority.
Yeah.
But not just for the sake of being at odds with authority. I expect excellence. I demand it from myself and those around me, regardless of tenure, age, background. Any company that I'm a part of today, I say it all the time. I don't care if you've been with me for 10 years or this your first day. Best ideas win, because I want a culture that's always trying to break things that are working well to make them better.
Yeah.
I don't want if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That is the laziest mentality I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah.
That is the most. Oh my gosh, that is the laziest pass the baton mentality I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
If it's not broken, find a way to break it and make it better. And I thrive in those spaces, and I won't even say I'm uncomfortable. I can say it can be uncomfortable being around me if you're from that other space.
Yeah.
I won't say I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable. It can be uncomfortable being around me because I ask questions.
Yeah.
So That's to answer the original question. It wasn't always football all the time. I would put the helmet on, and then it was like, for me in my mind, it was like, oh, I'm about my business. But when the helmet came off, and this is one thing I really appreciate about being from the area in Houston I'm in. I grew up in an area called Alief on the southwest side. And what I really appreciate is there's so many great athletes that came from there, right? Martellus and Michael Bennett. You think of my brother, Tony Hills. You think of Rashad Lewis, who went directly to the NBA. You think of just talent overall. I went to school with Lizzo. Beyonce went to my high school. You think Toby Nwigwe, the rapper. We played football together in high school. You think the Charlo twins, the boxers. We were all there together, right? And my area doesn't care at all. My area respects the people that should get respect. And you get respect, again, on how you treat people, on how you carry yourself, on your interactions. Like, that's, so for me, football was tough because it was such a big part of my identity, but in my area, it wasn't who I was. Yeah. It honestly didn't become who I was until I got to UT, which was tough because then, you got to break that later on.
Well, so let's come back to that, because the identity piece is such a big part of athletes transitioning, right? But as you think about football, what is it about that environment that spoke to you the most? Because in some ways, it sounds like that environment doesn't exactly match some of the way you like to operate in an environment, right, at times, possibly, or even, like you said, you still had an identity outside of that. What about football as a sport, as an environment, spoke to you the most? Talk about that.
It's a modern day gladiator sport. That's what spoke to me. Because my area was one of those areas where, like, there's no one coming here to save you. If they're picking on you at the bus stop, you better figure it out. That was just the area. So I think what spoke to me about football is like this is the outlet. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of disappointment. It's a lot. I tell people all the time, right? You think about these hoods and like really break down the hood. What is it? Unfortunately, it's a lot of single parent households, and unfortunately, a lot of those single parent households are overwhelmingly majority the mother at the helm without the father being present. So you have a household on average, and specifically my neighborhood, can't speak for the world. Fathers are absent, mothers are at work. So your OG is a 16-year-old when you're 10. It's a 19-year-old when you're 14. It's people with little to no life experience. So it's a lot of getting by the best way I can, figuring it out, and a lot of cloaks on. The way that I protect myself from being scared here is by fill in the blank, right? So you get a lot of that into sports, and you find, some of the most talented individuals, but this is the outlet. So for us, football was the positive outlet. My mother would, even before I wanted to sign up to play football, I'm signed up to play football so that she knows exactly where I'm at from 3:30 to 6:30 because she doesn't get home to 7. So like it's a different thing. And I grew to love the sport, absolutely love the sport. But I think what I loved about it was, to be honest, super transparent, it was a combination of the gladiator nature of the sport as well as the attention that being successful here got me. Right, you're looking for love at that age. You're a young boy looking for love, and that book where the love language book where they break. I did some self-diagnosing, and I realized mine was simply words of affirmation. Because it really wasn't quality time. Honestly, I enjoy my solitude when I can get it. It wasn't physical touch, acts of service. Not too many people doing much for me, and then gifts, those are coming every other Christmas. So it's like, but the words of affirmation, what I realize is, and again, I gave you that kind of scenario. The football coach is usually an older male that looks like you, that's taking the place of the head of the household being gone, right? And that person gives you the most love after a big play is made. So you start to associate your performance. It's like I'm talking about subconsciously. You start to associate your performance with love.
Yeah.
And then if you perform well enough, long enough, that love spreads. They start writing articles about you. They start talking about you on TV. There's more people in the stands. They got airbrush shirts with your name and number on it. You're the MVP of whatever games. They're doing scholarships for you that are getting donated to the true story. I think I made more money for my school my senior year than any other campaign. I won Houston Touchdown Club Player of the Week so many times. Every single time they donated scholarship fund money to the LSIC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think LSIC did for me?
Yeah.
Announcement at the morning announcements, they shout you. It's this nature of it that, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think they're doing it with ill intent, but I can definitely say from my experience, it created where I started associating the love with the performance. So, and I'm rambling. I don't even know how.
Well, no, I think that's really compelling. I mean, we started talking about what was it about that environment that spoke to you?
Yeah.
And I'm curious because you obviously played several different positions, but you were an incredible running back, right? At the end of the day, at the highest level. And so now we got the sport, but what about that position? Because you could have played other positions. Yeah. And sometimes the position that we play, someone chooses us because they see something in you, or we choose it. You know, and
I got a funniest story.
Yeah.
Funniest story. Yeah. I hope he hears this. His name's Saheed Amoru, 7th grade. So there are 8 middle schools in my area, 8 middle schools and 3 high schools. I don't know how many elementaries, but there's a good amount of them. Those elementaries funnel into the 8 middle schools, and then they have a thing that they call draft day on like one of the last school days of the year for the 8th graders, where the TVs come on, and they got the 3 high schools, Taylor, Elsick, Hastings, on a screen, and whoever the valedictorian is, like almost like the NBA draft, they drop it in and it starts spitting out names. And it spits out names, and that's what sends you to the high school that you're going to. We all find out staring at a TV what high school we're going to. It's the craziest situation, right? My 7th grade year, as we all transitioned from whatever intermediate school we were in or elementary we were in to the middle school, a kid named Saheed Amoru was so cocky and arrogant. We're friends now. But he was like, we had homeroom advisory together. I will never forget this. And he was like, what position you play? And I was like, man, I play wide receiver, DB, running back. He was like, well, you ain't playing running back. What you mean? And he's like, I play running back. So you better figure out something else. And was very serious. No LOL. No, like I said, it's one of them environments.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm very comfortable with conflict today because of my environment. Yeah. Now, I know how to handle conflict appropriately, but I don't shy away from hard conversations. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I asked him, I said, you play running back? And he's like, yeah, now it's a crowd here. It's a true story. He's a crowd here. And I was like, what other position do you play? Because I want to make sure you ride the bench for all of them. And he was laughing, and he was like, we'll see. I literally started playing running back just to put him on the bench. Up to that point, I had played other positions. I started playing running back in the 7th grade because of Saheed Amoru. He told me that I got to figure something else out, and I needed to show him that that's not how that works. Like, whatever you think you're great at, I'll be better at you. I'll be better than you at that. And then I'll decide if I want to keep doing that. But I started playing in 7th grade and played all the way. I got
so
scholarships on it and everything.
You're giving Saheed credit.
I got to give Saheed credit. Saheed Amoru, shout him out. Shout him out. I got to give him credit. If it wasn't for him, who knows what I've been doing. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this out to you, Ken. I want to see what resonates. So I put in a chat GPT because, I don't know every position in football super well. It may be a surprise to you to hear this, but I was MVP of our state championship game in high school in Canada. Okay. And I was the #1 rated kicker coming out of high school. in 1993.
Okay.
Okay. And I got recruited to play football and soccer at Notre Dame. So I know a little bit.
Did you know Notre Dame wasn't in California?
The only reason why I knew that is we had one American channel on TV in Canada. It was NBC.
Yeah, so
I
when they show all they got the contract. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how I knew about it.
Okay.
But here's, so I put in ChatGPT, tell me the physical and psychological characteristics of a running back at a high level. Okay. So I'm going to read these out. I want you to tell me what resonates with you.
Okay.
Speed, agility, strength, endurance, balance, and size. So those are the physical characteristics, right? Speed, have to be exceptional to outrun defenders and make big plays. Ability to make quick changes of direction and dodge tackles, right? Strong legs and upper body to push through. Stamina to maintain high performance throughout the whole game. And balance to stay on their feet, maintain control, and typically they're compact and muscular with a low center of gravity. Those are the physical characteristics.
Okay.
The psychological characteristic, resilience, mental toughness to recover quickly from hits and setbacks during the game. Vision, the ability to see and anticipate openings, right, in the defense. Decision making, quick thinking to make split-second decisions, which path to take. Confidence, belief in their abilities to execute plays and succeed under pressure. Work ethic, dedication to training and improving, and team orientation, because you got to be willing to block for teammates.
Yep.
So I want to hear of those things, and there's 12 there that I threw out to you, but what really sticks out to you is like what you feel like most resonates in the way you played the position, what you take pride in, and sort of feel like most describes you in that position. And if they're not on that list,
no, they are. I'm listening to them, and it's funny. I'm like, wow, it's pretty accurate. ChatGPT, man, that's scary. That thing's accurate. Speed, balance, vision, endurance, from a physical characteristic standpoint. I got stronger as I got older, but for me it was those. I ran track my whole life too.
Yeah.
So for me it was those. And then the psychological part was very interesting. Like, what did it say? Like resiliency. Yeah. And then vision. Decision making. I'm like, yeah, this is that. I mean, psychologically, you want to get so good at that. You got to put your 10,000 hours in to where you don't even know you're thinking. It's just a part of who you are and what you do. And ultimately, I genuinely believe I still operate with some of those same psychological characteristics to this day. I don't. If we were working on something together and you came to me with an emergency, it's like, Jay, I need to talk to you right now. Such and such just happened. I don't ask why, when, where, what, or how. I'm immediately saying, okay, let's do this. Because I know that, like, eventually, we won't be, on a sinking ship, and you'll tell me how it actually got to that point. But right now, we need to make an adjustment, and we need to move forward. Like, that's how I look at everything to this day. I don't. No use crying over spilled milk. I agree. I don't get me wrong. I definitely believe that when time permits, you cut the tape on, you see where the mistakes could have been avoided, and then you try to do better going forward. But what we're not going to do is ever sit in a state of what do we do now? That doesn't exist. You figure it out.
Yeah. So if you had teammates talking about the way you played the position or coaches, how would you have played it? So those are some characteristics that you just need to have probably on balance or on par to compete at a high level. What did you do that made you uniquely you and better or different than other people playing that position, do you think?
One thing running backs have a tough time with is catching the football, right? As to where my last year, I led the Big 12 with all running backs and receiving. So it's like catching the football came naturally to me, which would make you like a dual threat, which is actually how I came out of high school. I was rated an all-purpose back. I wasn't rated just a running back.
Yeah,
rated as an all-purpose back. And I think that ability, and then like stylistically, I was fun to watch. Just because like you get to a point where, especially you see it in high school, you get to a point where you're really good and you're having a lot of fun. And so stylistically, you can put butts in seats because people, they want to, I wasn't just this 6'2", 245-pound senior that's running over little kids. I was 5'10", 179 pounds. So like, I got some size on me, but it's a lot of cats out here way bigger than me. So that was fun to watch. And I think another thing is that I love the game. Like, I genuinely love the game. And in my neighborhood, there weren't many quiet heroes. So I wouldn't even have my mouthpiece in so that I could talk. I told you I like to talk. So I'm talking, I'm having fun, performing at a high level, and giving it everything I got just because I love this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me think, because I had on here as I was sort of doing my research and background, the question was one athlete you could have dinner with.
Yeah.
You put in there, and you put Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And
This
so
must have been when I was in college.
It was when you were in college.
Okay.
So
okay.
this is when you're in college. This is off your profile at Texas. So, I was really curious about this. What about Muhammad Ali inspires you, attracted you, makes you gravitate to want to spend time with them? Has that changed or shifted? Is there somebody else in that position now?
I say it's funny, I didn't know you. So you just said that about Muhammad Ali. Now rewind this tape 5 minutes and you see the way I played my game, right?
That's why I'm
it was Muhammad Ali. Like, it was, name me somebody else that had fun, that was entertaining to watch, that was talking, that was performing at a high level and giving it everything they got, right? Like, that's, like, you can do all of those things, right? And I think that's somebody that's just in a flow state, that's enjoying, like, loving what they're doing. And with Muhammad Ali, I don't think that, was that 2008? Goodness, I don't think all those years ago that, I would say the reasons that it is now. But, at 34 going on 35, I would probably still say Muhammad Ali, but more so to ask about some of the decisions that he made outside of boxing. I would love to know how he navigated the pressures of being that successful and then making a change that a lot of his own people felt like he made an about face and turned his back on them. I would love to hear about his actual thought process and his decisions, not in just activism, but in his decisions to withhold his talent and his skill set from certain, American duties and responsibilities. I'm just curious what would make a man that many would probably say is built up on the hype and fame and people loving him, decide to make decisions that he knew prior was probably going to change that narrative, and for him to do it anyway. I'm just, like, that's what I'm more so curious about now than anything, is like the spirit and the mindset of a champion versus just, at 18, I was just fangirling over the performance.
Yeah.
Performance has been documented enough times to where I think I got a decent grasp on it. But if we only got a dinner, I'm gonna say we only got 75 minutes. I want to talk about the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why that resonated with me and I went directly there is not only the way you described, the way you play the position in your domain, but also there's a humanity to Muhammad Ali, which you're describing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a very principled human being who has a core set of values, but is also a very flawed human being. Exactly. Only to say that he's human, right? And he's humble enough he's going to go down as the greatest, but he was every aspect of a human being that you could put forth. And maybe only because of that, he's going to go down as the greatest, right? And so when I think of Jeremy, I think of someone who is very humble, right? Who is very human, shaking hands, meeting people, spending time with people anywhere I see you, whether it's on social or otherwise here at Collective. And so there's a human side to Jeremy that I think that when I think of Muhammad Ali, I think of that human side.
I'll take that.
And so I think that's, maybe the through line, the thing for all of us to kind of learn from,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because ultimately, and I was in the performance training space for over a decade. And what I would tell these athletes at the pro level all the time is like, man, congratulations, you've reached what many of you had as that childhood dream. Now, what it took to become successful and what it takes to stay successful are two different things, and we'll go to there. But number one thing, the elephant in the room that I want to address is that, like, scoring touchdowns and sacking the quarterback does not exempt you from being a good human being. That's not how that works. You can't sack the quarterback enough times for me to, like, relieve you of your responsibilities to society as being a decent human. And then we say, okay, well then what's a decent human? I was like, now we're finally having a conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I genuinely believe that there's not enough money to be made. There's not a unique set of skills that should exempt you from decent human responsibilities. I'm not telling you that you need to, lead the trash pickup in the ocean for plastic if that's not what, speaks to your spirit. I'm telling you that you don't get a chance to walk. You don't get the opportunity to walk through life as if your decisions don't impact others, and everybody has to be aware of their decisions impacting you. That doesn't exist. And Tony, I think that, like I said, my upbringing, there's so many great athletes around here. The way we treat it and the way that respect comes is not based on a seat. It's not. Your seat is the NFL. Your seat is the NBA. Your seat is Major League Baseball. Congratulations on your seat. I'm a fan of your performance. That is the extent that I know you, is I'm a fan of your performance. I don't know Patrick Mahomes personally. I am a fan of his performance. Now, if I'm going to respect Patrick Mahomes, there's a lot more that comes to that. And that's the part that I try to make others aware of. And that's the part that I try to myself exemplify, is where I don't care how much success you have in business. I don't care. You can't build enough gyms or wine bars, restaurants, or shoes, or anything in between to exempt you of decent human interaction and responsibility to society.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way it should work. And since I was like wholeheartedly believe that, I try to live that.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. So if we're kind of summarizing where this part so far, like we got Jeremy, who's got agility and strength, right? The endurance to stick with it and break through for an entire game, right? And then we've got resilience and vision, right? So you can, which is a lot of what you work on, anticipate openings, see where the markets are. It could be the wine market, it could be the fashion apparel market, right?
Right.
We've got decision making and ultimately confidence. I mean, one of the things you started with is this confidence that you've carried with you, that you can, if you're at the bus stop or you're on the field or you're out trying to do a deal, you can rely on yourself and you have a confidence that you can get through it, right?
Right.
So those are the things that got you those words of affirmation, that love, and ultimately, out of, and probably not only yourself, but a lot of other people with you, out of a tough situation. So where do you go from there? I mean, you're like at that point, how old are you?
Coming out of?
Yeah, out of Texas. You were at like 22?
21.
21, 22?
Yeah, 21, 22.
I think you had an injury?
Yeah. Senior year, senior night, broke my leg, ripped my ankle real bad. Took a long time to learn to walk again. It was tough.
So tough. What is there to do next?
The best part was that was such a pivotal moment in what I believe was shaped the rest of my life, because I wasn't able to hide behind a performance anymore. I was stripped of my cloak. I was stripped of what hid the shortcomings of a human, and because now the thing that has gotten me by is no longer available to me. I can't even walk. I can't drive myself anywhere. You talk about a humbling experience. The best part about it is that it forced a lot of reflection. And for the first time, I got a chance to see the world move on, which no ill feelings towards anyone. They did what they were supposed to do. Everybody in this world cares to an extent. Now, that extent based on is a person-to-person, gauge. Tony cares more or less than X. X cares more or less than Y. And that's just the way it works. But ultimately, the man in the arena is the one responsible for picking themselves up, planning things out, working the plan, failing forward, and figuring things out. And I think that being in that seat was important for that time, because it started to shape me. It genuinely started to shape me. It was like, okay, this so very close, but this dream is done. What do I do from here? Right. And that led to me. I was working at CarMax, dude. I'm working at CarMax. Let me tell you, we gotta investigate CarMax. We gotta investigate CarMax, because it's borderline. They borderline got you selling something else over there. Okay, I got on like the smallest khaki shorts. I'm like, there's no way this is my uniform. I got on the small. I'm in like I mean, this is like Hooters just rebranded. You know what I mean? I got on like these small khaki shorts. I got on my blue Carmex collar shirt tucked in with my little name tag on, and humbling was the only word that I can think of to describe that time. But necessary is one that I would say is a close second, and that ended up becoming a foundation that was laid for everything else to grow on.
So I want to, one, we have something very much in common, which, I graduated, I was an All-American at Notre Dame in soccer, played professionally for 2 seasons after, but I ended up breaking my ankle pretty bad and having a big ankle injury that took me out for 8 months. I was on crutches for about 4.5, 5 months of that. And I sold cars in the off season to make money.
There we go.
And so we could share stories all day long about that environment and that situation. But I learned a lot about just human interaction, right and wrong, what I'm willing to do and not willing to do.
Right.
So those can, and it makes me think of that experience. And now you've got 2 experiences that come to mind, one with Saheed and now one with this injury. It's that saying that things happen for us, not to us.
Right.
And so I'm curious, the injury you said forced you in a lot of introspection, maybe forced you to take a step back, take stock in a way that maybe you would have just been on highway hypnosis.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. What was that process like? What did you do in that process of introspection?
It was tough, man. It was, to be honest, it was just a lot of feeling sorry for myself. Felt like I let a lot of people down. Because, I made it up to the very point, right? So I thought I let a lot of people down. I was a lot of feeling sorry for myself. I felt embarrassed to even go back to Houston. And then, it's different when you feel like you don't get another at-bat and you don't know what to do next. So you're just in like this place of existing. And I say I kind of just existed for a few months there. Completely stopped going to school. There's no need to, go to class anymore. Now, luckily, I had some teachers that really cared. I had some professors that really, really cared. And so I was able to get some things handled on that end to give me an opportunity to right some wrongs there. But, it was tough. It was tough. Superpowers were gone. You ever seen one of those episodes where, like, Superman is next to the kryptonite? And it's like, Clark's no damn good. He can't do anything. Like that's what it felt like, right? That's genuinely what it felt like. But I think the really good part of what it did is it made me, at that time, it made me figure out who I really was. It forced me to, because ultimately it only goes down from here if I let it. And then I genuinely started to believe that I'm the master of my fate. Like, I'm the one that makes the decision for what happens to me. Like, I think that, like, there's people in this world that bend their will to the world, and then there's people in this world that are constantly fighting to bend the world to their will. And I think I'm the latter. So that fight alone is one that I've gotten really comfortable, even enjoy. And I think a lot of it started there, because I didn't have an exceptional skill set that was now going to save me from my circumstances. I had to start thinking. I had to start getting crafty, creative. Had to start working a lot harder. Had to start trying things that I never tried before. So I had to, like, exist in this space of unknown, and not just exist in it, but find a way to win in it, and then get really comfortable in that space, because that one win is not where I wanted to end up at. The second win is not where I wanted to end up at. And all of a sudden, you just start getting comfortable and confident in this space of, like, forever trying to make the world bend to what you want out of it.
So if you were, if you have an athlete, someone in the military, maybe someone in creative arts who's had a setback or has a moment where they know they need to make a transition, what advice would you give them specifically around steps they should take to go through that process you went through, like any specific roadmap for them, or like, here's some things that I would go do, read, think about, people, I don't know, how do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I try to challenge a lot of these young guys to do it while they're still on top, right? Because ultimately, Tom Brady just retired.
Yeah.
The game ends for everybody at some point. So what I try to challenge the guys that are winning, on top, and then the guys that are going through something at the time, is figure out who you are. A lot of people don't know who they are. They know what they do. They know what they're good at. They know what they enjoy. They don't know who they are. Like, if I were to ask you right now, Tony, what is your overarching purpose for being on this planet as you see it best?
Well, and I can tell you because I've thought a lot about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So my purpose is to lift people up.
Yep.
Okay. And that's comes from a very specific place, because when I was going through that early journey, I spent a lot of time getting beaten down.
Yeah.
So I've kind of flipped the script, and I didn't realize that till later in life as I discovered the helper's high and coaching and leadership and leading teams. Lifting people up is the purpose. And then the secondary thing to that, I would say, is I've had to get clear on what my values are.
Yep.
Because I actually think I'm just a walking embodiment of my values. That's who I am.
Yep.
Which has to do with family, community, health, and vitality, excellence in what I do, and learning and growth ultimately. Right?
I mean, obviously you spent the time, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have that answer ready to fire and go. And not ready to fire and go so that they can sound good when they answer a question, but secondarily so they know, how do you even know when to say yes or no to something?
Yeah.
How do you know what's a part of what your mission is and what's a distraction? Because opportunities and distractions look so closely similar, especially when you don't have any direction. So I believe when you identify what your purpose is here, then you can almost reverse engineer your morals, what you're about, what you will and won't do, what's compromisable and what isn't. All of a sudden, this roadmap starts to line itself out. So what I would suggest for the others that you were talking about, and I did it myself, is start spending some time with me, figure out who I am, and figure out what my purpose is here. And then once I truly identified that, at the very least, I know what direction I'm going in.
What's yours?
It's simple. I wanted to do two things, actually. One, and I think at the very top, is I wanted to change the dynamic of my family tree. I wanted to change our trajectory, what was expected of us, and where we started. And then secondarily, I wanted to inspire those that come from neighborhoods and situations that are so closely similar to mine, that are all over the place. I tell people all the time, I hope everybody gets inspired. My targeted demographic is right there. I'm not telling everybody don't take this and what you can use and get from it, but I'm talking to them. Yeah. And so that's me. And what helped me from there was exactly what we said. All right, this is my morals as I've lined them out for myself. This is what I won't compromise on. This is what I want to learn and grow in. And as I started to do that, I literally just started living in, what my true self. I started living as me and getting better at that. And now it's funny. It's like they say, success into more success kind of thing. I'm not trying to do all the things. I'm doing the things that are in line with what my intent is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know exactly where I'm going now.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, I saw a quote from you that really stuck with me. Your life is not over. That life is over.
Exactly.
And so when you say that, what do you mean for folks?
It's simple. Like I said, when we first got started, we usually all map out what our plan is. I'm going to go to this school. I'm going to study this. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to meet this girl or guy. We'll get married. We're going to have these children at this age, live here. I'm going to do this, open this. For some, it happens exactly like that, and I would say great for them. Now, for the rest of us that really live in real life, chances are it doesn't happen exactly like that. And an even higher chance that along that way, it starts to change as far as what the actual plan is based off of how you've grown and what's more important to you now. So when I say that life is over, I mean the one that you thought was the life. There's this what I think I'm meant to do here, and then a little bit of life gets sprinkled in there, and life happens, and then you grow and you mature and you go through some things, and then you actually discover what you're supposed to be doing here. And so life isn't over. You've shed the other things. That life is over. The one that you thought was your full identity, that's actually not at all.
Yeah.
That's the one that's over, and now you can get to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like when you're going through let's say, that competitive cauldron of competing and winning at that level, with all the goal from the beginning is to figure out how to succeed in that sport. It's so hard for you to see that there's actually a whole nother set of stairs on this long stairway that go much higher and further than the horizon of what you can see on the stairs you're currently trying to climb.
And that's why exposure is so important.
Yeah.
It's not until I started traveling internationally that I started to truly realize how many people do not care about American football. Like, travel a little bit. Go travel a little bit, and you will start to actually understand, oh, this is just big here. And I mean, that's why I say, I mean, I've always said, I think travel is the greatest teacher, because it is the biggest piece for exposure, in my opinion. You can turn on National Geographic, or you can go see it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's a very privileged statement, and I understand that. But if you have the means, I would highly encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
Because I think that it just helps put things in perspective.
Yeah.
What's the most important versus what I made the most important.
Well, and travel can be relative too. I mean, you know, you can go to different states, different neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
You know, you can, so there's a lot of ways. I think what you're saying essentially is, like, the first step is to go inside for some period of time and be introspective.
Yes.
And get clear on your purpose and let's say your values and maybe your vision for what you want to create. But while doing that, that doesn't mean you're shutting out the outside. You're keeping some level of openness.
Have to.
The possibility, right?
You have to.
Yeah, and to let ideas come in because you've been somewhat blinders on.
Yes.
Right?
Which, to be clear, is important for a point in time. Now, discernment is knowing when. But a big piece of this thing is understanding when the blinders need to go on and when they need to come off. That, don't think that you can discard the blinders on this journey, because sometimes you need to lock in.
Yeah.
There are some times when you need to lock in.
Yeah.
You know, but what I'm saying is, understand that we're forever students.
Yeah.
Understand that the goal is never to learn everything. Like, mastery is not the goal. Like, learning, innovating, breaking things to make them anew. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So like I think that we have, like, we think of it in this linear sense of, like, I've achieved it, I've done it, it's done. And I'm like, no. You got to the end of that line. And hopefully along the way, there were, you know, the blinders weren't on the whole time, and you were exposed to so many other lines that had different things on the other end of those, and now you want to go explore them because you generally believe that this may lead back into my overarching purpose.
Yeah.
This may be something that I can, this is a skill set that I can learn that could actually help me do what I've said is I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Like, be open to that. Be open.
Well, maybe this brings me in a whole other part of the conversation around maybe fear to some degree. So if you're unpacking that a little bit, because I'm curious how you deal with fear and turn it into courage and turn it into moving forward.
Yeah.
But the easier thing to do in some ways is to kind of stick with what you know.
Yeah.
Right. Stay close to the sport.
That's
get
dangerous.
into
That's not easy. That's dangerous.
You know, like step into the next thing that's like one step over to the left and one step forward, let's say, right? The more scary thing is to go begin again, right? Go be a white belt again. You know, step into something that you actually know nothing about, but with the confidence that you've built a set of skills and capabilities that can get you there. So I'm curious, and the thing I'll wrap around that, and you made me think of this, is I only got clear. I think I always knew what my purpose was because I felt very aligned in the way I was living,
right,
internally and externally. But it only was a couple of years ago I got invited to go to a retreat, a men's retreat. It was a 2.5-day retreat. A friend of mine who's a very successful marketing exec and owns an agency for tech startups sent me an email, and he sent a long email around an invite to this men's group. There's going to be 11 or 12 men who were all sort of similar kind of entrepreneurs and people in the tech world. But he put in there will be crying, there will be talk of religion, there will be this, there will be that. And I read the email and I thought, I'm allergic to this email. Like, I do not want to go do this, okay? But then I sat on it for a day and I was like, this is exactly why I need to go do this.
Right.
Because, and it's sort of a version of walking to the fire instead of away from the fire, if you will, right? So putting on that cloak and you know, let's say hitting a hole that you know could be painful versus, you know, taking a cut to the outside,
right,
but you need those 3 yards.
Right.
So I'm curious, how do you deal with because I know you're a guy who runs to the fire, not away from the fire, right? But for people who are contemplating, do I take a step and start my own business? Do I go into this whole thing that's completely different I know nothing about? You know, it'd be way easier to just go coach them. Nothing wrong with going to coach at your high school if your passion is to help those kids, right? But not because it's the easier solution, right?
Right. Intent matters so much. Like right and wrong, I'll never say if something was right and wrong unless I know the intent. Like that's what shapes. We have to know what we set out to do to know if my goal was to become a great beacon of hope and leader for my community and impact young people in a neighborhood, then maybe the high school coach job is the one for me. But if that's the one that's safe, that I believe allows the lowest risk for heartbreak, heartache, and the most sustainable career that I probably won't run a risk of getting fired from and can have a consistent check. If that's the mentality around it, then I would challenge that that's the right job. So it's just what the intent is. For me personally, I've been made aware that it's easier for me because I've naturally been this way. Like in the fight or flight, I've naturally been fight. So it's more natural for me to run towards the fire. I don't think that it's any less necessary for those that naturally go towards flight to run towards the fire. It just sounds like they got a harder job. You still got to do it. For me personally, I recognize that everything that I want in life, usually when I get to some type of barrier, it's on the other side of that barrier. It's on the other side of that unknown. It's on the other side of that fear. So scared, yes. All of the same emotions, like every single emotion that anybody can think of before a big decision, a big speech, a big move, a big career change, a big conversation. I have every single emotion, every single one of them. I have them too. The only difference is I've made a pact with myself to do it anyway, and I won't quit. Like those are the two distinguishing factors. I'm going to do it anyway, and I won't quit. Chips will fall where they may. I have sometimes, more than once, more than twice, more than times I can count, set out to do one thing. When it was all complete, the chips fell a different way. I'm okay with that. That's the way it goes sometimes. But I think that like we have to get really, really comfortable with failure. I think a lot of people want to go through this life without suffering, without failing, without being disappointed, without having their heart broken. So we want all of the great things, but none of the things that you have to go to get to the great things. I think that's reserved for very few and far between. You know what I mean? I think that like that life is reserved for very few and far between. And I don't know, I mean, I can't speak, I've never lived that life, but I honestly don't think that that's fulfilling anyway. I think the fulfillment is in the learnings throughout the journey, the learnings and the experiences throughout the journey. I think that's where the fulfillment lies. Like for me personally, getting to the end of things, the actual end is never really as sweet as what you thought it was. Now, the memories of the thing are usually what I've missed the most, is the memories of going through the thing. So I think that you get just comfortable with problem solving. You get comfortable with ideating. You get comfortable with overcoming obstacles and hurdles and objections. You get comfortable in this space. And you get comfortable being uncomfortable. I know that's such a cliche thing. I tried my hardest not to say it. But like, you just get comfortable being uncomfortable. Knowing that like, I don't know how many times I get an opportunity to do this. I don't know how many times I get an opportunity to fail. I don't know how many times I get an opportunity to be great, to change the way that people looked at a thing, to inspire people to do things better or more accurately than I did. Like, how many opportunities do we get to do that? I genuinely don't know. Yeah. So I'm trying to take advantage of every single one of them. And I think that might have come from sports.
Yeah.
That might have, I mean, you went through it. Like, you have an injury that takes you off that field, and you had those thoughts of, will I ever be back on that field? any type of experience like that would probably make you appreciate being on the field more.
Yeah.
So when I look at those scary spaces, I'm like, this is the field. Like, this is it. This is the opportunity that I don't know when it ends.
Yeah.
Jay-Z talked about it. He called it the white hot space. Like, he said, you enter this space. You don't know when you enter it. You don't know when it's over. You only recognize that you're in it. And when you're in this space, everything's clicking.
Yeah.
Everything's working. The ideas are flowing. People are wanting to help. Things are turning in your favor. Everything you put out is a hit. It's all working. You don't know when this space started. You don't know when this space is over, because there will be a day that you put things out that don't click as much, that don't hit as hard, that don't resonate as much, and people ain't really trying to help too much. We don't know when that happens. We just know we're in it, and we got to make the absolute most of it.
Yeah.
So run towards the fire feels like the only option to me.
Yeah. Well, and what we're basically trying to unpack for, for those that are sort of in transition or trying to find their way is to, you've used the word flow a few times, right? So we all know that from playing the sport, right? Time is passing, we're in the moment, nothing else matters but what we're doing, and we're playing at our best, right? Mm-hmm. Decisions are coming quick, the game slows down. You're sweating and you're breathing hard and heart rate is up, but like you can go all day.
All day.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can feel that outside of the field, right?
Yeah.
But you have to live in alignment with your purpose and with your values, and also be, sort of the definition of being in flow is you have a challenge hard enough or big enough to challenge you and raise your game, but it's also in alignment with your skill set.
Right.
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 So it's sort of interesting on that regard, because I one other quote I took from some of what I was reading about you prior to us talking was, I don't run 8 businesses. I play my role in 8 businesses.
Absolutely.
I play my role in them. And if I think about you, because people could just see you as the front man. He's running everything.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's on stage or the face of this or the face of that. But in many ways, a running back, because of this need to like do what's necessary to progress down the field, right? It's sort of like you're playing that role in what you do. I don't know if you would agree with that.
100%. 100%. I think like you can only do that when you put the ego down. It's the only way. Otherwise, you won't allow yourself to do what's necessary, because not all the jobs for what's necessary are very glamorous. Some jobs are muddy. Some like, hey, that's just the way it works, right? But for me, I'm so locked in to what we agreed upon as success before we started that journey. What we agreed upon is the win. I'm so locked into that. All my skills, my network, my experience is all available. And however that we decide as a team, as a unit, that we want to apply it for the thing we're trying to get accomplished, bet, let's do it. And anybody that I've done any business with would tell you that. I guarantee they'll tell you that. Like, Jeremy's willing to do whatever it takes. When we started, I told you that.
Yeah.
The difference is that I'm genuinely willing to do what it takes. I'm not willing to do what I want to do. I'm not willing to do what it takes as long as I'm having fun. I'm not willing to do what it takes as long as it's between the hours of 8 to 4. I'm willing to do what it takes. I'm not willing to do what it takes as long as it happens in the next 2 years. But if it goes past 2 years, I'm not sure if I can be a part of it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of dedicated. I'm the kind of dedicated that says, did we get done what we set out to get done? Bet. That's what else would I rather be doing?
Yeah.
If I'm not at home with the kids, what else would I rather be doing right now other than trying to figure out this thing that we said we wanted to do? Like that's the problem with me, and I wouldn't even call it a problem. The reason is hard to compete at this level is because I'm not even just talking about me. I'm talking about what I've witnessed and what I experienced. The people at that level, they're different. They're different. There's no parameters. There's nothing. It's just simple. It's like them and the thing. That's the only thing that exists. 1 year, 6 months, 6 days, 6 years, it doesn't matter. 8 to 4, 4 to 8, 4 to 4, it doesn't matter. Birthdays, Christmas, holiday, it doesn't matter. They love working on the thing so much, you got to rip them from it. And I genuinely believe those are the people that earn success.
Yeah.
I think those are the ones that earn it. And so I whenever I'm talking to people, I'm like, do you have to be successful, or do you just kind of want to be successful? You know, and I want to be clear. When I'm saying success, I'm not talking about an amount of money.
Yeah.
I'm literally saying what you said you were setting out to do and what you've actually done. Do those line up? Now, and again, contingency in there. Did you settle, or was it complete? If we set out to do 100 different collective locations, but at number 40, we felt like it was complete, I'm okay with that. Did we set out to do 100 different collective locations, and at 40, I said, no mas.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's that simple.
Yeah.
It's that simple to me.
Yeah. Well, and to people that are listening or talking about this conversation, it's sort of, you might wonder, well, how do I find that, right? How do I find that focus, that passion, that energy, that commitment? And the reality is it already existed, because you would have never made it to the level you made it in wherever you were competing unless that was in you.
Right.
I mean, there's a chance. Like, we've all had teammates who, I always kind of laugh because I hear organizations go, we want to hire athletes in the military. Why? Because, they're great team players and they have grit and they have resilience. So both you and I know we have plenty of teammates who are in fetal position, in the corner when times got tough, or they weren't great teammates, or they didn't have all of that. But the point is, you likely had it, right? Yeah. Especially if you're thinking hard on this part of the conversation. So the question is, how do you find it again, right? But in a different context. So all you've done is you're still going to play the sport. You're just going to change the field.
Right.
So all these things that you did still matter, and they still apply. Now you'll probably play, or it might be interesting to think about, should I be playing the same role in the same kind of environment? Because that's what I'm good at, right? So if Jeremy's playing life like a running back, at the highest level, it's working pretty well for him. You know what I mean? And he's feeling pretty in alignment with his purpose and his values while he's doing that, potentially, right? Doesn't mean we can't expand and extend. But I'm curious, just maybe the last question, because I want to respect your time, obviously, because you run around between a lot of things. But so what is the one thing from that whole experience that you had to unlearn? Because look, I'm actually a believer that in some ways, elite athletics or other elite kind of environments and domains aren't the best teacher of what it means to be successful in real life.
Yeah, it's not apples to apples at all.
No. And so what do you feel like you had to unlearn or adjust the most and forget or leave behind in order to live the kind of life you want to live?
I think in this, man, I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but this is the truth as I hear that question. In sport, you prepare all week for the opponent. You watch film, you have practices, they have scouting reports. There's a team around you to assist you in winning that match, that game coming up on agreed upon date and time for competition. In business, nobody's wearing jerseys. And you think some people are on your team, but they're not. And you thought that girl was on a different team, but she's actually on yours. And when you thought the game day was, they actually switched the time when you were asleep the night before. In sport, it is a gladiator setting of may the best person win. In business, when they say by any means, it's truly by any means with no agreed upon rules. And they make rules, but as you know and I know, those rules get broken all the time, and that's why they have courts to figure those things out. The toughest thing that I had to unlearn from sport to business was thinking that everybody wanted to win by being the best man the way that I did. And I had to learn that people just want to win, and they'll do whatever. The vultures are in the sky, the snakes are in the grass, and it is Game of Thrones all the time. Being okay with that was one of the toughest things for me early. simply because to me it's always mattered how you won. And in business, it just is the win. Like they don't care.
So what have you done specifically to deal with that? Like you said, you've learned to live with it, deal with it, work within those conditions. What have you specifically done to do that?
I look for what an old friend of mine, Chad Benoit, he taught me one day. PLUs, people like us, is what he calls them. And I'm not looking for people that think of life the same way I think of it and see it exactly from the lens I see it of. But I'm looking for the people that help build this team out in a way that I would be proud of, right? And like that's super important to me. Like I said, I don't care if it's day 1,000 or day one, best ideas win. So we definitely have different backgrounds, different opinions, different things that we think. But like a team, we've identified what the win is, and we're all working that direction, right? And then when a call is made, in respecting the chair, we run the play. And if it worked, we review the film, figure out how to do it better, see if that idea that we pushed aside last time is right for this moment. If not, we're going to still table it, and then we'll do it again. And if the play we ran didn't work, we're going to go back and look at that idea a little bit tougher, the one that we pushed to the side, and possibly try it, or we're going to potentially refine it. Either way, we built this team culture that's all agreed upon. For example, what's best for collective above everything else. And so we've built these things almost exactly like you would a sports team, and understanding that people don't play the game like us. But one thing I also understood is that it's not my job to convince anybody that I'm right and that this is the way to do it, nor is it my job to convince anybody to play the game the way that I see to play it. It's just my job to be right. And I mean, it's just like history, right? History is not accurate. It's just told by the team that won. That's the way that this works, right? So when I look at it, I'm like, no, let's identify our goal. Texas and Texas A&M. I'm not talking about the next guys. I'm simply doing everything we can to achieve that goal. And then when we get there, you know what we get rewarded with? People asking us how we achieve that goal. And now we use that platform and that space to be transparent and honest, hoping that it reaches a different set of people. And hopefully they apply some of these same principles to whatever it is they're doing. It is our job. I mean, it's like Instagram. It's enough BS out there. And what I've always noticed is that the BS is really loud and that the real stuff is not as loud. And I wish we would turn the volume up on the real stuff a little bit more. It's our job to give the intelligent person on the other end of this thing the opportunity to compare and contrast. And the only way we do that, Tony, is by winning. That's it. Let's just focus on the goal.
Yeah. No, I love that, because maybe people don't put enough thought into like what's the team you're building, or who are the people that you're putting around you, and how do you, almost in the same way as sport, just stay focused. Don't read the headlines. Don't focus on what everyone else is doing. It's what's happening in that locker room, that belief between that group. But it's easy because you lose those brothers or those sisters when you get out of sport. You got to find a new set.
That's the tough
who aren't
part.
Coming from the same background or the same set of conditions. Because really, you had a head coach who was looking out for you to make sure that you're picking the right people.
Right.
You know. But in business after sport, you have to be the one being the head coach, putting the pieces together, even if you're not the head coach.
And how fun is that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't look at it like you have to be the one. You get to be the one. How fun is that?
Yeah.
How fun is that to put it together, help people dig deeper into their own belief and their own talent that they didn't know was lying there. It probably had a dormant skill set that they never really tapped into. Now they've gotten excited about it. They have your full support, and now they go and be a star in that thing. How fun is that?
Yeah.
Like that's, again, it's not. Getting to the end just gives you the opportunity to spread the message further. The actual doing is where the fun is.
Yeah.
Like the actual doing.
Yeah.
That's where the fun is.
Yeah. And it's always been where the fun is, right? You roll the ball out, you get to the court, you get to the field, and when the coach calls time, you're like, no, don't stop the thing.
Exactly.
You know, we still got more to do.
Exactly.
And I love those sessions.
Exactly.
Right? Where it's like, no. Can we go for 10 more minutes?
Exactly.
Like just one more goal. Next goal wins. And you keep going, you know.
And that's the way it is. And then look, when you actually win, what do? They reward you, they celebrate you. It's fun. Everybody loves to be rewarded and celebrated. They give you a medal and a trophy that goes somewhere up on a shelf. and all you can think about is, well, let's get back to work.
Yeah.
Like that's where the fun is.
Yeah.
I want us to get more comfortable being in that space.
Yeah. I love that. Well, look, just out of respect for time, we could go all day.
Yeah,
and maybe we need to do this again.
Me and you talk all yeah, whatever you want. You let me know. Yeah.
Here's what I would say. If I'm just, reminiscing or just touching on what I heard. One, we talked about you can admire someone's performance, and there's no question I admire the things you're doing, the ground you're covering, what you're building. But I also know the man, and I just got to know the man better. But I see you in action. I see you living consistent, and I see the respect that you've earned of people around you, the community, your peers. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you, brother.
And I know that's important to you for
Absolutely.
Those two things. I also love the fact that you're still playing life like a running back, because you played that pretty damn well.
Yeah, thank you.
And I could see that connection.
Thank you.
And I can also see that you've expanded your range, into what's important to you, right? Your kids.
Yeah.
Your community, other things. And one of the things a coach said to me one time, this was part of one of those McDonald's All-American kind of, Senior Bowl kind of things in college. I never got to play for this coach, but he was kind of an iconic soccer coach in the States, a German guy. But we were warming up before this game, and he said, boys, there's a time and place for everything. There's a time to laugh. There's time to cry. There's time to be serious. There's a time to joke. There's a time for this, and I'll never forget there's a time and place for everything. So I think what you've done is you're trying to set the conditions so that you can do what you need to do and know there's a time and place for everything, and there's going to be a time to spend with your kids. There's going to be time to spend on your health.
Absolutely.
Time to do other things. But so I appreciate that about you, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you, brother.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. That was awesome.
This was fun.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please review and follow this podcast on all your favorite platforms. And if you want to continue the conversation one-on-one, feel free to reach out direct. You can find my information in the show notes. And we want to share your story. So if you're passionate about helping others through transitions to find their center and find their best path forward, feel free to reach out and let me know. Until the next time.